Chapter 1: Release the Kraken. The air was electric in the Sydney Stadium, home of the NCC 21-23 Championship Finals. Bright spotlights crisscrossed the arena, illuminating the futuristic battlefield where Melbourne Nexus and Sydney Nova faced off in the final round. The crowd, a sea of red and blue, roared with anticipation. Fans waved holographic banners that shimmered with their team's logos, while drones captured every angle of the action, broadcasting it to millions around the world. The scoreboard glowed brightly above the field, 3-3. This was it, the deciding round to crown the NeoBlade Championship Circuit champions. Tension hung heavy in the air, the cheers from moments ago replaced by a collective hush as the final seconds of preparation ticked away. "Nova are on the brink of victory," one commentator exclaimed, his voice echoing through the arena. "4 players left on their side, and only one stands between them and the championship. This has to be a done deal." "Don't count Nexus out yet," the other commentator replied, his tone more measured, yet tinged with a smirk. "They've entered the Kraken's hunting ground." "What?" the first commentator asked, a hint of skepticism in his voice. "What are you talking about?" "Just listen to the crowd," the second commentator said knowingly. The Nexus fans, who had been eerily silent moments before, began murmuring. The murmur grew into a chant, rhythmic and rising in intensity. "Release the Kraken! Release the Kraken!" Suddenly, the camera focused on a figure crouched behind a shattered piece of cover near the center of the field. Clad in a sleek, black combat suit with glowing blue accents, Elijah, known to the world only as the Kraken, held 2 discs in each hand. His helmet visor gleamed under the stadium lights, concealing his face but reflecting the calm determination he was known for. As he stood and stepped out of cover, the crowd erupted. "Release the Kraken!" The energy in the stadium surged, the Nexus supporters drowning out everything else with their deafening cries. Elijah stood still for a moment, scanning the battlefield. The remaining Nova players were spread out, each taking strategic positions behind barriers and within elevated platforms. They readied their discs, eyes locked on their singular target. "This is it," the second commentator said. "Nova might have 4 players, but against the Kraken, they'll need more than just numbers." The final round began. The stadium lights dimmed for a split second before the battlefield erupted into chaos. Nova's discs came flying at Elijah from all directions, glowing streaks of energy slicing through the air. Elijah moved with a precision and calmness that belied the chaos around him. As the first disc shot toward him, he sidestepped with fluid ease, the glowing projectile narrowly missing him and ricocheting off a nearby barrier. Another disc came from the left. He spun, allowing it to graze harmlessly past his combat suit. The crowd gasped, then roared as Elijah's first 2 discs left his hands. They flew with lethal accuracy, weaving through the air like predators hunting prey. He barely paused to watch their trajectory as he launched his remaining 2 discs, each aimed at a different Nova player. "4 discs," the first commentator breathed. "He's dual-wielding both hands. I've never seen anything like it." "Classic Kraken," the second commentator said with an audible grin. "Nova's about to learn why you don't play games with a legend." Nova's players scrambled. One dove behind a barrier, narrowly avoiding a disc that slammed into the ground where he had stood. The second ducked, only to have a disc loop back midair and strike him square in the chest. His combat suit sparked, and he crumpled to the ground as the scoreboard flashed, player eliminated. The stadium exploded with noise, Nexus fans chanting louder than ever. "And he gets 1," the second commentator shouted. 3 left for Nova. The remaining Nova players adjusted their strategy, attempting to corner Elijah with coordinated disc throws. One vaulted onto a higher platform, trying to get a clear shot, while another charged forward. Elijah didn't flinch. He sprinted to the left, effortlessly dodging a barrage of discs, his suit's agility boosters aiding his fluid movements. His 3rd disc, still in the air, twisted mid-flight and slammed into the advancing Nova player, sending him sprawling. Player eliminated. He's down to 2 opponents, the first commentator yelled. How does he do this? The final two Nova players regrouped, realizing brute force wouldn't work. They positioned themselves defensively, aiming to hold their ground until the round's timer ran out. Elijah's fourth disc hovered ominously in the air, circling back toward him like a loyal sentinel. He caught it mid-flight, a calculated move that drew a wave of awe from the crowd. Now armed with two discs again, he stepped forward, eyes locked on his opponents. From the stands, Nexus fans erupted into a unified chant, Kraken! Kraken! The Nova players made their move, firing simultaneously in an attempt to overwhelm him. Elijah leapt to the side, vaulting over a barrier and using a wall as a springboard to evade their attacks. As he landed, both discs in his hands shot out in opposite directions. One disc curved around an obstacle, catching the third Nova player by surprise. He collapsed as the scoreboard flashed, player eliminated. The final Nova player stood frozen, realizing he was alone. Elijah's remaining disc looped through the air like a predator, circling him with precision. Before the player could react, it struck his chest, and the crowd erupted into chaos. Player eliminated. And that's game, the second commentator shouted. The Kraken does it again. Melbourne Nexus are your 2123 NCC champions. The Nexus bench stormed the field, cheering and embracing one another. Elijah stood at the center of it all, calm and composed, as the crowd chanted his name. Kraken! Kraken! Above the field, the scoreboard updated to announce the champions, Melbourne Nexus, back-to-back NCC winners. Hours after the final whistle blew, the Melbourne Nexus locker room was alive with celebration. Players cheered and embraced each other, the trophy gleaming under the fluorescent lights. Elijah, however, was absent from the raucous gathering. Instead, he stood in the team's executive office on the upper floor of the stadium, facing the Nexus chairman. The room was quiet, save for the faint hum of the city outside. The chairman, a polished man in his mid-50s, sat behind a sleek desk, his fingers steepled as he studied Elijah. Between them lay a single sheet of paper, Elijah's contract. You've done it again, the chairman began, his voice smooth and controlled. Back-to-back champions. It's unprecedented, and it's all because of you. Elijah remained silent, his helmet still on, reflecting the faint glow of the city lights through the office's floor-to-ceiling windows. Which is why, the chairman continued, we've secured an offer. A sponsorship deal. Billions, Elijah. Enough to elevate this club to heights it's never seen before. New facilities. Expanded recruitment. Everything we've dreamed of. And? Elijah asked, his tone calm but firm. He had a feeling where this was going. The chairman leaned forward. The sponsor wants you. Not just the Kraken, but the man behind the mask. They want the face, the story, the brand. Reveal your identity, and they'll invest. It's as simple as that. Elijah exhaled slowly, shaking his head. You already know my answer. The chairman's expression tightened. With or without you, they'll still invest. But if you refuse, you leave us no choice. He slid the contract across the desk. Reveal your identity, or your contract will be terminated. Elijah picked up the paper, studying it for a long moment. Then, to the chairman's surprise, he chuckled softly. You think money motivates me? I think opportunity motivates you, the chairman replied. Think of what you could achieve with the resources this deal will bring. For you. For the sport. Elijah stood, the contract still in his hands. I appreciate everything you've given me. The opportunities, the platform. But my morals aren't for sale. With that, he calmly tore the paper in half. The sound of ripping echoed in the quiet office as the chairman's eyes widened in disbelief. Thank you for everything, Elijah said, placing the torn contract on the desk. I wish you and the club all the best. He turned and left without another word, leaving the chairman staring at the shredded remains of the agreement. The celebration was in full swing by the time Elijah made his way to the banquet hall. Music pulsed through the air, and players, staff, and their families mingled, sharing drinks and laughter. In the middle of it all sat Brax and Sophie, Elijah's childhood best friends and agents. Brax was mid-rant as Elijah approached their table. I'm telling you, this club is run by a bunch of greedy suits. Throwing away their best player for a few $1 billion. It's ridiculous. Sophie, ever the voice of reason, placed a hand on his arm. Brax, calm down. You're going to give yourself an ulcer. Brax scowled but obeyed, shoveling a forkful of food into his mouth instead. Elijah sat down with a faint smile. You should take Sophie's advice. Stressing over it won't change anything. That's easy for you to say. Brax shot back. You just walked away from the team you carried to 2 championships. Elijah leaned back in his chair, his calm demeanor unwavering. It's not about the team. It's about the sport. And I still love it. Brax sighed, shaking his head. You're too calm for your own good. Elijah's attention drifted to the stage, where a young woman was singing. Her voice was clear and captivating, cutting through the noise of the party. She had an effortless presence, despite the modest setup Nexus had given her. Who's that? Elijah asked, nodding toward her. Sophie followed his gaze. Her name's Taylor. College student. She's trying to make it as a singer, and Nexus hired her because she was cheap. Her looks probably helped, too. Brax grinned, elbowing Elijah. Looks like someone's interested. Elijah rolled his eyes. She's good, that's all. Brax chuckled. Sure, Kraken. Whatever you say. Later in the evening, the party continued to buzz with energy, but Elijah felt the need for some fresh air. The banquet hall was stifling, and the weight of the day had begun to settle on him. Stepping outside, he found himself on a quiet terrace overlooking the city. The distant hum of traffic mixed with the faint echoes of celebration inside. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed someone else on the terrace. The singer, Taylor, stood near the railing, clutching a water bottle. She seemed nervous, her hands fumbling as she tried to open the cap. Before Elijah could look away, the bottle slipped from her grasp, clattering to the ground and spilling water everywhere. Need some help? Elijah asked, his voice calm but carrying a warmth that put her on edge. Taylor spun around, her wide blue eyes meeting his helmeted gaze. For a moment, she looked defensive, like a startled animal unsure of its surroundings. I'm fine, she stammered, bending to pick up the bottle. Elijah took a step closer, offering the unopened water bottle he had in his hand. Here. Take this. She hesitated, her fingers curling and uncurling as if debating whether to accept. Finally, she reached out, her voice soft. Thanks. Elijah smiled under his helmet. No problem. There was a moment of silence as Taylor looked down at the bottle, then back at him. You're with the team, right? I guess you could say that, Elijah replied, leaning casually against the railing. How's the gig going? Taylor shrugged, a small smile tugging at her lips. It's something. They don't pay much, but it's nice to perform. He nodded, sensing her nerves. If you're up for it, my friends and I have a table inside. You're welcome to join us. Taylor blinked, clearly taken aback by the offer. She looked down, her grip tightening on the bottle. I don't know. No pressure, Elijah said gently, starting to step away. The offer's always there. Before he could walk off, Taylor spoke up, her voice a little louder this time. Wait! I'll come. Elijah turned back, a small smile visible in his body language. Good. Let's go. As they entered the banquet hall, Taylor followed Elijah closely, her steps hesitant. When they reached the table, Brax and Sophie looked up in surprise. Brax, ever the joker, immediately grinned from ear to ear. "Who's this?" he asked, his tone teasing. "This is Taylor," Elijah said, pulling out a chair for her. "She's the one who's been singing all night." Taylor smiled nervously. "Hi. It's nice to meet you." Sophie returned the smile warmly. "You were fantastic. You've got a great voice." Brax, meanwhile, leaned back in his chair with an exaggerated grin. "And she's brave, too, sitting with us weirdos." Taylor tilted her head, her lips curling into a playful smile. "Why do you look so goofy?" Brax feigned offense, clutching his chest. "Goofy? Me? I'm a picture of class and sophistication." Taylor giggled, and the ice between them seemed to melt. The group fell into easy banter, with Brax cracking jokes and Sophie keeping things grounded. At one point, the conversation turned to NeoBlade. Taylor mentioned offhandedly, "My dad and sister are obsessed with it. They're always talking about the players. Especially this guy they call the Kraken." She laughed lightly. "I only know the name because my sister has posters of him everywhere." Brax leaned forward, his grin widening. "And what if I told you that he's the Kraken?" He gestured toward Elijah. Taylor blinked, her expression blank for a moment before she shrugged. "Sure. Why not?" Her carefree response left Brax in stunned silence. "Wait, you believe me?" "Why wouldn't I?" Taylor asked, tilting her head. "You seem honest enough." Elijah chuckled softly, appreciating her trusting nature. "Let's not make it too easy for him, Taylor." The conversation shifted to lighter topics, with Taylor quickly finding her rhythm. Brax challenged her to darts, only to lose spectacularly, much to Sophie's amusement. As the night drew to an end, Brax and Sophie said their goodbyes and left. Elijah, noticing Taylor still at the table, asked, "Do you have a way home?" Taylor nodded. "I was going to take an Uber, or maybe just walk. My apartment isn't far." "I'll walk you," Elijah offered without hesitation. Taylor hesitated, then smiled. "Okay. Thanks." The cool night air was a welcome change from the crowded, noisy banquet hall. Elijah and Taylor walked side by side down the quiet street. Without his helmet, Elijah's face was finally visible, calm and composed, his sharp features softened by the warm streetlights. Taylor occasionally glanced his way, her curiosity evident but unspoken. "So," Taylor began, breaking the silence. "What's it like being you? The whole NeoBlade superstar thing?" Elijah raised an eyebrow, the corner of his mouth quirking into a faint smile. "You make it sound more glamorous than it is." "Isn't it?" Taylor asked, tilting her head. "I mean, championships, fans chanting your name, people dreaming about being you. That's got to be surreal." Elijah took a moment before responding. "I love the sport. Always have. But the rest of it? The fame, the pressure? It's just noise. At the end of the day, it's about the game for me." Taylor smiled, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "You're different. Most people would kill for fame and attention. But you don't care, do you?" "Not really," Elijah admitted, his gaze fixed ahead. "I care about doing what I love. The rest doesn't matter as much." Taylor studied him for a moment, as if trying to figure him out. Then, a grin spread across her face. "I like that. It's refreshing." They walked in companionable silence for a few moments before Taylor spoke again, her voice brighter this time. So, my sister, Kyla, would lose her mind if she knew I was walking with you. She's obsessed with NeoBlade, has been since forever. She even wants to go pro. The way Taylor talked about her sister was full of warmth and pride. Elijah noticed the way her eyes lit up whenever she mentioned Kyla. She's a lucky sister, Elijah said simply. Having someone like you to cheer her on. Taylor's cheeks flushed pink. Thanks. I don't know what I'd do without her. She's everything to me. Elijah glanced at her, the sincerity in her voice striking a chord with him. That's a rare bond. It's something worth holding on to. As they reached the entrance of her building, Taylor slowed her steps and turned to face Elijah. Thanks for walking me. I had a really nice time tonight. Elijah offered her a small, genuine smile. Me too. Taylor hesitated, biting her lip before blurting out, Do you want to come up? Not like that. She immediately panicked, her hands flailing as she tried to explain. I just meant, I have snacks, and maybe you're hungry, or, never mind, that was dumb. Elijah chuckled softly, holding up a hand to stop her. Relax. I get it. Sure, I'll come up. Relieved, Taylor smiled shyly and led him up the narrow staircase to her apartment. The space was small but cozy, with mismatched furniture and a faint scent of vanilla in the air. She skipped into the kitchen, humming a light tune as she rummaged through the cabinets. A moment later, she returned triumphantly with a pack of biscuits and a jar of chocolate dip. Behold! The ultimate midnight snack. Elijah raised an eyebrow, his lips twitching into a smile. Fancy. Taylor plopped onto her bed, patting the spot beside her. Come on, sit. You're not too good for biscuits and chocolate, are you? Shaking his head in amusement, Elijah sat down beside her. The two ate and talked, their conversation flowing easily. Taylor giggled often, her carefree nature shining through as she asked Elijah about everything from his favorite color to his most embarrassing moment. As the hours passed, Taylor's energy began to fade. She leaned back against her pillows, her words slowing as her eyelids grew heavy. Elijah noticed and gently took the jar of chocolate dip from her hands. You're about to fall asleep, he said softly. I'll clean this up. You should rest. Taylor mumbled something incoherent, already half asleep by the time Elijah returned from the kitchen. She was curled up under her blanket, her breathing even and calm. Elijah stood by her bedside for a moment, watching her peaceful expression. He reached down, tucking the blanket around her shoulders before turning away. Elijah made his way to the small couch in the corner of the apartment, lying down with his hands folded behind his head. The faint glow of the city lights filtered through the window, casting soft shadows across the room. His mind wandered as he stared at the ceiling. The day had been monumental, a championship win, a severed contract, and now this unexpected connection. For the first time in a while, he felt at peace. Despite the uncertainty of his future, Elijah smiled. It wasn't the championships or the fame that mattered. It was the small, genuine moments, like this, that made everything worthwhile.